Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Today I'm going to share with you 20 tips to get your generator running and keeping it running in the deepest cold, even here on the Canadian prairies in the mid-30s. Tip number one, get yourself a trickle charger. That's something that installs permanently on your generator, plugs into your battery so that you always have an electric start. Plug it in, keep it plugged in. That way, every single time you want to start your generator, you don't have to try to rip and tear on it. You've got yourself plugged in with a full, beefed up, juicy battery. Tip number two, make sure you're using winter fuel. That might not be a problem if you live in southern Texas, for instance, but up here in Canada, they use winter fuel about 6 months of the year. So instead of holding onto your fuel for a year when it's stabilized, you might want to rotate it out every 6 months so that you make sure you're running winter fuel. It's going to make everything run just a little bit smoother in this nasty, nasty cold. Number three, if you're going to run this in a shed or a garage, and this is a big if, leave the door wide open. Use a fan to ventilate it and have a CO2 monitor in there. Make sure it's an unattached shed that doesn't have anything flammable in it, something that's not attached to your home. I am not saying I recommend this because I do not run this in an open building, an enclosed shed or building at all. But if you're going to do it, what I need to tell you is have as many doors and windows open as you can. Have a CO2 monitor in there and make sure there's nothing flammable near it. I can't stop you from doing something I don't recommend, but I can at least tell you how to stay safe if you're going to be doing something like that. Tip number four, get yourself an oil pan warmer or a battery blanket. If you're going to be outside in -30 running your generator, the last thing you want your generator to try to start up in is thick, gorpy, cold oil, or a battery that's not going to have its full cold cranking amps because it's cold. So go to your local parts store, your local auto supply store, get yourself a little blanket that wraps around your battery, keep it plugged in so it's always warm. Or get yourself one of those little magnetic warmers that you can stick on your oil pan that keeps your oil warmed up and good to go. Number five, here's a good one. Run it monthly or every other month. The worst thing you can do is buy a generator, leave it in a box, and never run it. Or unpack it, run it once, leave gas in it, and then try to run it a year down the road. Ask me how I know. I used to be one of those guys. So the most important thing you can do to make sure your generator is going to run in the dead of winter is to make sure you've run it on a regular basis. Some people say every 3 months, some people say every 2 months, some people say every month, somewhere in there, at least quarterly, and don't just run it for 2 minutes and then turn it off. Run it, add some fuel stabilizer or some seafoam, something like that, and then get it up, put a heavy load on it, and run it for 15 to 20 minutes so that it burns all the gunk out of it. Tip number six, fill up your gas cans before the storm or the weather. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard from people, I sat in line for 3 hours to get one 5-gallon jug of gasoline. One of my family members did it one time. They drove a half an hour, sat in line for 3 or 4 hours to fill up a single 5-gallon gas can. Guess what? They probably burnt more gas going there, sitting there, idling their vehicle than they made for their generator. Keep an eye on the weather. If there's a nasty storm coming, don't go the day before. Go 3 days before and fill up every jerry can you have. Ideally, you already have gas on hand, but if you don't, fill them up before the storm so you're not fighting the hordes of folks. Tip number seven, if you can, run it under a covered area or get a gen tent. Now, the reason for that is it's not going to help with the cold, but what comes with cold? Ice and snow. And the last thing you want is that kind of stuff to be all built up on top of your generator, freezing things up when it stops, plugging up or restricting airflow in or out with snow built up around it. So what you want to really do is make sure that any of this stuff coming from the sky can't land on or around your generator. If it's a really cold day, or really any time at all, start it on propane or natural gas if it's a multi-fuel generator. I have a tri-fuel generator that runs on gasoline, propane, and natural gas. It is so much easier to start it on propane or natural gas. I like natural gas because it's basically unlimited. It just keeps pumping into there. Get it started on that, let it warm up, then switch it over to gasoline. That way you're not burning out your battery trying to start it on gas that's been sitting in there for a while, or worse than that, trying to pull start on gasoline and give yourself a good case of tennis elbow. So run it on propane or natural gas to start, get it running, then switch over to fuel. Number 9, know where your nearest warming center is. That way, if all else fails and you can't get your generator started, you know where to go so that you don't freeze your baguettes off. For us here locally, it's the town hall or it's the fire station, but know where you can go. If you've tried everything, your house is getting cold, your kids are freezing, and you need to go somewhere. If you can't get that generator to start, don't be stubborn, go somewhere and warm up. Tip number 10, and this is one of my favorites as well, run it before the bad weather gets here. The last thing you want to do is be the person that's out in the cold trying to get it to start when you had a week's notice of the deep freeze of a century coming at you. Keep an eye on the weather. It doesn't mean be paranoid, but you're gonna know if the weather's coming. So 3 or 4 days ahead of time, 2 days, whatever you have time, go out in the evening, start it up, have it running before the cold weather gets here. Because the last thing you wanna have to do is try to start a cold generator so you can make your wife coffee, heat your kids, have hot water for the bath. Number 11, and this is a good one, stay away from ethanol fuel if you can. In my area, it's damn near impossible now, especially in the prairies in Canada. But if you can get ethanol-free fuel, you're gonna be so much further ahead. The biggest thing with ethanol fuel is after it sits for a little while, it separates and it attracts water, which isn't great, but I wanna tell you something, it's a hell of a lot worse when it's -10, -20, -30. If you've got water in your fuel that ethanol has attracted to it, and then it gets wicked cold, you're in for a heck of a time. Number 12, if you can, construct some sort of windbreak. The best thing you can do is break wind for your generator. Seriously though, wind drives cold. Cold gets into things. Cold freezes things. Like my lips, I'm talking like Clark W. Griswold in the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and my nose hurts. But seriously, keep the wind off of it. It's going to create way less problems that way. Not enclosed, but break the wind for your generator. Next, number 13, clear yourself a path beforehand and keep it clear during the storm. About 3 winters ago, we had a big storm coming in and I thought, you know what, there's a good chance we could lose power. I took a walk from my house to my garage to see, hey, how's the path gonna be for pulling that big beefy 10,000 watt generator out? Guess what? Not so bad, but the gate to the back door, couldn't open it because it was froze solid shut. So I spent 2 hours chipping the ice away, digging all the snow out so that I had a nice clear path. 2 reasons, so your generator can get through and so you don't fall and end up breaking a leg or your neck when you're trying to unload or move your generator. Number 14, if you have to shut it off at night or if it's snowing really hard, check it for snow or ice buildup before you restart it. Because what's gonna happen is that thing's gonna be blasting hot, it's gonna be melting away the snow, melting away any ice that comes on it. And then as soon as you shut it off, it's gonna start cooling down. Things are gonna start freezing really quick. So in the dead of winter, if you can help it, keep running it as long as you can. But if it does have to shut off, when you get ready to start it again, check it over really good for air intakes, anything like that that might be froze up or plugged off. Number 15, start it with no load on it at all. This is important. It's way harder for a generator to try to start up when you're trying to pull power out of it. Just let it start up under no load. Most folks know that, but there's gonna be somebody out there who's gonna say, I didn't realize that. Don't have anything plugged in, don't have your power turned on for your generator. Get it started, then gradually plug things in. Tip number 16, make sure you have a way to power your furnace. So many folks go out, they buy themselves a generator and they say, there, now my kids will have heat when the power's out. Have you ever gone down and looked at your furnace? You ever notice how it doesn't plug into the wall? You ever notice how it's hardwired into the panel or hardwired into a utility box on the wall? Well, guess what? You need a way to power that. There's lots of ways to do it. One of my favorite ones is the little inlet box that you can have an electrician install, or if you know what you're doing, do it yourself. And it allows you to unplug the power to the furnace and then plug in your generator. But again, make sure you have a way to power your furnace. Number 17, use cold weather extension cords. And why is that, Tim? Well, let me tell you. If you've ever tried to unroll a non-cold weather extension cord in -20, it's just going to hold its shape. Then you try to force it, and the outside casing is going to crack, and then eventually the inside casing on the wire is going to crack. Then you're going to have shorted out wires, you're going to have broken extension cords, and you're going to waste a whole lot of money. So spend a little extra on a good cold weather extension cord, preferably with lighted ends. And get the brightest one you can get. Get hot pink so your neighbor doesn't steal it, so that it shows up when a little bit of powder or snow gets on it. Those lighted ends do two things. Number one, they let you know, hey, I do have power running from the generator. And number two, it's going to let you find it at night or in the snow. Number 18, keep spark plugs, air filters, and other sundry parts on hand. The last thing you want to do is try to start a cold generator with a gummed up spark plug or a filled up air filter. So keep them on hand just in case you got to flip something out quick to start it. Tip number 19, if you live where it gets really, really cold, switch to a lighter weight oil. A lot of generators ship with 10W30. So what you want to do is switch to a lighter weight, either 5W30 or 0W30. That is a thinner viscosity oil, which means it's not going to be as thick when a cold generator tries to start up. Number 20, have a plan for getting power into your house. That can be as simple as running extension cords in through your doggy door or a slightly cracked window with towels in it, but have a plan. The first power outage we had in our new house, I didn't have a plan. I had to come up with something. We put it through the door, shut the door the best we could. It was letting a lot of cold air in. All of a sudden I realized, hey, dummy, you have a dog door. Run it through the dog door. That worked way better. But have a plan. Run extension cords through a door. Get yourself one of those double-sided 6 outlet boxes that you can just mount right through your house. Have yourself a lockout system installed so you can properly and by code backfeed, or have a transfer switch installed. Whatever you have, but have a plan going into it to know how you're going to get the power into your house. Number 21, the bonus tip, something I've never done before, but I found it while researching for this video. Pre-warm the air before it goes into the generator. Use a blow dryer, a heat gun, or the vehicle exhaust. Preheat the air for the air intake. It's going to make your generator a lot easier to start. I haven't tried this one before, but I wanted to include it because I had never heard it before. What is considered really cold? Well, that depends on where you're from. If you live in Texas, anything below freezing would be really cold. If you live in Alberta, anything below -30 is what we call really, really cold. The main thing you're worried about is when it's going to be significantly colder than what the average winter temperature is. That's when your gear starts to break. That's when your gear does things that you don't want it to do. If they're announcing on the radio this is going to be a once-in-a-century cold snap, might be something worth looking out for. Now, if they're only giving one day of really cold, you probably don't have to worry about it. It's when you get these extended periods of cold that things start freezing, they don't work the way they want to, or you want them to. So you need to decide ahead of time what is considered really cold for you. When you have that threshold, then you can trigger your plan and start doing the things you need to do for a really, really cold day. So if you're going down the rabbit hole of backup power and staying warm in the dead of winter, check out this video I did right there, all about how to stay warm during an extreme weather event. And if you stuck around to the end of this video, then my content must be a good fit for you. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and stick around. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay warm.